immutable. The money is decentralized.
The genesis locked to the end of the mempool. We are decoding Bitcoin's signal in the noise. Privacy, self-custody, censorship resistance. Welcome to the revolution. This is OnChain Revolution.
Welcome back to OnChain Revolution. My name is Yago B, and I am your host for this channel and show. Welcome back, guys. It is Friday. We are heading into the weekend, and surprise, surprise, Bitcoin is indecisive once again, right? No shock there. We have been dealing with this for quite some time now, right? It did feel good to see that energy kind of pump into Bitcoin, getting back to 74,000. That was a crazy price point that we got back to. But as some options expired in the early hours of the morning over in the US, Bitcoin seemed to kind of head back down, right? We are sitting at 68.5 right now. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to finish the week green for the first time in 9 weeks, right? That's a potential situation that is still on the table. But today's main topic is going to be don't buy altcoins until Bitcoin breaks these key levels, or stay away if it falls below certain key levels, right? We're going to talk about that. But I want to welcome back all my audiences, TikTok, Abstract, Zora, Rumble, and of course, YouTube and X. And if you guys could help me out before we get started on the YouTube side, smash that like for me. It does help the algorithm for sure. And then subscribe to the channel if you like my style and content, of course. And then on X, if you could share the space, I would greatly appreciate that, as that helps. And smash that like on X as well. Right, let me actually get that. Okay, perfect. X looks great. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff we're going to jump into. Of course, we're going to hit on that key topic, what levels. I've already have them plotted out on Bitcoin on the daily chart that I'm looking at to potentially start to get a bit more aggressive for altcoins, or to back off even more, right? So there's 3 key levels on both sides. We'll dive deep into that. And the big story of the day really is the jobs numbers that came in very, very bad, right? We're going to hit on that with the market pulse. We're going to get into some news stories. News has been extremely boring lately, guys. I mean, you're talking about a lot of infrastructure stuff with nation states and, the Clarity Act stuff, that type of stuff. But there's a little drama spurring up right now between Curve Finance and Pancake Swap. We'll get into that interesting situation kind of coming out of that both of those camps there. We'll dive into that, and then we'll hit on Jack Mallers and Strike getting a big license for New York to be able to service the residents there to be able to buy Bitcoin. So that's always good for adoption. ETF flows are starting to reverse. So is that a first sign to say, hold, let's pump the brakes? 74,000 was great, but we got to follow the ETF flows, because ETFs were flowing in for the past week and a half before Bitcoin really saw this run up. Now we're starting to see the first outflows again. So that is not good. We'll hit on some Bitcoin ecosystem stuff. I'm going to hit on Barbra's, catch up with Barbra, which she does an amazing job. You got to follow her for sure on X at WagMeGirl, but we'll get into that, and you can follow her for sure. I'll give you guys her tag, but she does an amazing breakdown for the Bitcoin ecosystem. But yeah, and drop your comments and questions in the chat, and I'll get to those accordingly. I'm going to try to, scope every single platform today, but I am one person, and it is not the easiest to kind of pull all the levers and all that stuff for one individual, right? But yeah, let's get into that market pulse to start the day, and we will start with the jobs numbers, which were extremely bad. Let me pull up the market watch here, and it looks like, okay, so for February, the U.S. employment report came in negative 92,000 jobs. Very, very poor report, right? I mean, almost 100,000 negative jobs reported for February. The forecast was positive 50,000. So that's a huge swing. You're looking at almost 150,000 in swing there. And then let's see what the previous was, 126,000 for January. So, I mean, this is definitely has a lot to do with, in my opinion, Bitcoin peeling back here. Probably all the markets, and we're going to look at them here in a second. And then you got the unemployment rate. So the unemployment rate didn't really get that much worse. It did 0.1%. So just a tad, really minimal, because the forecast was 4.3%. The previous month was 4.4. Hourly wages barely up. So really the biggest thing here is the non-farm payroll, right? The employment report, right, being negative 92,000. We'll see how long this carries over, and does this ruin our actual chance of breaking this negative return percent rate fee, or negative return percent for Bitcoin weekly, right? We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks in a row of Bitcoin returning negative percent ROI. And then this week we were looking strong at like a positive 8%. It's come down to 4%. So we got 3 days to really see what happens there. I was hoping that we could break the streak, but it might actually get back negative. And if that happens, then we'll be kind of shooting for the longest streak ever, being, into the 7th week there. The longest streak ever of negative returns for Bitcoin on the weekly is in 2014. You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we would be, trying to take that top spot here in a couple of weeks. Hopefully we don't. And then the monthly is barely green. It's working on its 6th red month in a row. March, if we turn red, that would make it 6, but we are still very, very early for the monthly. So, we have a lot of time there. On the weekly, it's more kind of, are we going to be able to actually flip it, or we're going to keep going down? So that's something I'm paying attention to. But we are closer to kind of reversing that, in my opinion, than, extending it multiple weeks out. So that's a silver lining I think that we can take with that. We got a couple comments here. We got Stan says the Anthropic founder stated Claude is flirting with consciousness. When they attempted to scrub, the agent attempted to replicate. Are we cooked? Thanks. I saw that article and it did kind of worry me a little bit. But the nerd in me is like, wow, this is crazy. If it's true, I always was under the impression that we needed quantum computing to be pretty far along for consciousness to be sustained, right? For these AIs to be sentient. But maybe there's a lot of technology that they're not telling us about that they have. And then Stan says, is DeepSeek the most efficient? I think Anthropic probably is, but I don't mess with DeepSeek too much. One thing I will say is shout out to ChatGPT, because GPT 5.4 is very comparable, in my opinion, to the Sonnet 4.6, right? I think it's Sonnet. I was a bigger fan of Anthropic, and I still probably am, but the GPT 5.4, you should try that if you haven't yet. All right, let's get back to the markets and see how they're responding. And this is a little preview of what we're going to talk about later here, if you can see the screen. But let's take a look at how the financial markets are responding to this employment catastrophe. All right, we got the S&P pulling back 0.1%. NASDAQ pulling back 0.77%. So the index funds are not loving it, but not getting crushed. But you wouldn't imagine them to get too crushed anyways, because top 500 companies, right? But, down almost a point there. The Dow Jones pulling back 1.05%. The VIX is up 12%. Makes sense. Everything's pulling back, right? kind of a little bit of aggressively, right? Not too much, but the Russell is down 2% there. No shocker. Risk on is not popular right now. The Dixie, the DXY, is down 0.05%. You got the Magnificent Seven pulling back 0.77. Nvidia pulling back 1% there. Google pulling back 0.39%. Apple pulling back up 0.109. Tesla pulling back 1.79, and Netflix pulling back almost a full point, pulling back 0.93%. Futures are up. Oil is shooting up. No shocker, right? With all that stuff that's happening in the Middle East. Although it did, I felt like it was a little weak a couple days ago. But futures oil is up almost 13%. Oh my gosh, that's huge. Silver futures is up 2.6%. So they are looking at precious metals again. It seems like, let's take a look here. Bitcoin pulling back 3.6%, getting gut punched, double gut punched. Ethereum getting pulled back here about 5%. You got the precious metals up, gold up 1%. So gold's, pretty consistently staying above 5,000, sitting at 51.40. And then silver, the meme coin of precious metals, is back to $84. It's up 2.55%. So little mixed signals coming in from the market's not really, I guess, people are trying to grab on the precious metals maybe as like a life preserver right now with the jobs report coming out so bad. And then you have some of the futures with oil. Really not a shocker there. It's just the stock market, and then Bitcoin and crypto is really getting hit the hardest, right? So that is how the market feels about everything at the very moment. So Van Wong says even Iran can't save Bitcoin. Well, I don't know if Iran ever wanted to save Bitcoin unless you're talking about, funneling money over to it. But yeah, the war is kind of weird. It's like up and down. People were bullish about it with Bitcoin this past week, but I think more than anything, it is the jobs numbers. I mean, that's pretty scary, and it's dramatic. Jobs pulling back 92,000 when the expectation was a positive 50,000. I mean, look, and also another thing that I've learned with this current administration. And look, I mean, everybody probably knows that if you guys watch the show, I lean more conservative than the other side. But I got to say, I've been conditioned at this point that anything that feels good in the crypto space doesn't last too long. So for me, whenever I see Bitcoin get to 74,000, it's great. And I think it's an opportunity for people to, in the short term, maybe make a play or trade or something like that. But until we get more stability from a geopolitical standpoint and economical standpoint with tariffs and all these things, I don't think anything's going to be sustainable for long term in our space until that starts to shore up. And so maybe that happens after the midterms. I don't know. We're definitely going to have those moments like right now that, the spring push up. I think that 74,000 was a part of that, right? But now we are pulling back a bit, and so we will see what happens. But yeah, you got to take advantage if you're a short-term trader. Now, if you are a DCA type of person, just ignore a lot of what I just said and just keep doing what you're doing with Bitcoin, because that has been proven over, a span of what we're looking at now, 17 years since Bitcoin is, was invented or created or launched, of it having success. So I'm talking about more of the people that are in it for faster movements, even mid movements. You got to learn from how this current administration is. Now, the new Fed chair could change things if he gets aggressive with cuts and tries to print a lot of money. We could see something different, but until then, that is my mindset. Okay, so let's get back to that main topic. Don't buy altcoins until Bitcoin breaks these key levels. Appreciate the questions and comments in the chat as well. Keep those coming, and I will definitely get to those, and we can talk about some stuff and drop some tickers or anything you want me to dive into as well. I am an open-minded person to where, I love to do research on the fly with you guys as well. All right, so let's take a look here. So why am I saying don't buy altcoins until Bitcoin breaks these key levels? It's because if you look at the history of Ethereum and altcoins, they're all following Bitcoin to a T. Now you do have specific tickers that have kind of done their own thing at different times because of narratives and those type of things. But even now with the AI narrative, look at Tau. Tau was, last time I saw, was like $180 around there, 180 to like 195. You would think Tau should be at like 250 at least, 300. Early 2025, I remember Tau being at 400, right? But again, we're in a bear market and everything is looking to Bitcoin. So let's take a look at some of these key levels that I say, okay, I'm starting to look at alts a little bit to take a shorter term trade or a midterm trade, not long term. This is not for that. So don't have that in your mind. This is giving me more conviction to back off because we were just not close to that right now, right? So when Bitcoin got to 74K, I said, the question was, could it get to 80,000 at that next level? And I said, I think you guys need to pump your brakes here a bit. First, we got to make sure we can stay above 70,000 because that's the new support level. And then that next level was, in terms of resistance, was pretty far up. You're looking almost to 80,000 anyways, like 78,962. So what this will do is, first of all, kind of let us know where we are and from that point, right? So we haven't officially, this is the daily chart that I'm showing you guys for Bitcoin. We haven't officially lost the support yet. Does the percentages look like that's going to happen for today's daily candle? Probably about 80%, because we're sitting at 68,300 right now. But yesterday's candle finished at like 70,900, right? So this level that we got to stay above is 70,580 that I marked. I looked at kind of where it's been, holding that support up. That's most likely not going to happen, in my opinion, unless we have a huge reversal, today. So we can say that we lost that level. Theoretically, we can say hypothetically that, let's just say hypothetically we lose it. Okay. It hasn't happened yet, but we'll see, most likely it will. So then that's the first critical support that we lost. So that's making me say, okay, I probably want to start saying, okay, I'm backing off of alts a little bit. The second level is that $68,000 area, which is kind of this level here that, we had that between 68 and 70 support, right? But it was like the next level that was kind of holding a little bit between after 70,000, right? So that's where like the altcoin rotation starts to break down. I think there was an extremely short window. If you made some trades earlier this week, for you to get into some of these alts, but like it didn't last at all. It's been like a perfect trade almost situation, right? So we're right there right now. So we're at 68,300. If we finish today's candle below that validation is lost, right? Or gives that validation is confirmed in terms of losing it. And then the next level would be that 65,000, to where I think capitulation is where people would start to feel like, oh, we're heading back to the 200 moving average, right? Now, let's say that today is a situation that we actually rebound miraculously. We finish today's daily candle above that 70,600. And then we start to look at these higher levels here, right? So the first level is that 73,300, which is kind of where we've been bumping our heads with Bitcoin. When we got to 74K, it was like 73.3 to 74, right under 74, kind of back and forth until we couldn't, and then we started going down. So that's that first key resistance area that we got to get above. Okay, so we got above this, and you can use this also. I'm going to be using this for the next couple of weeks as well, because just because we might lose now doesn't mean we don't have some liquidity and energy come up later in March and maybe early April, right? So 73.3 is that first level that the daily candle has to finish above. Then I say start looking at BNB and ETH and Solana a little bit. That second level is the 74.3. So they're really close, because we haven't been able to really get over that 74. And this is that secondary resistance area, that 74.4. And then finally, the breakout confirmed, which would probably have us knock at the $80,000 mark, is that 78,962. So around that area is where we would have to finish the daily candle to say, okay, there's a shot that we have at 80K. So it kind of goes back to the question I had yesterday, right, with you guys. But as of right now, what I'm seeing right now with the current situation, we're definitely, we need more time to get out of where we are in this downtrend. So hopefully this helps you guys. I'm going to be using it. And whenever I look at where Bitcoin's heading, I always look at that weekly chart as well. It really helps me a ton, right? And are we done with this type of, let me actually pull this up for the all-time history. There we go. It's better. Are we done, hanging around the 200 moving average? I think we still got a good amount of days. Even with green, we'll come back down to this area a bit, right? You're looking at, I think I said like 160 something days. That was on at 160 to 180 on average whenever we get in this area. And we're just at 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. So about 30 days in, maybe a little bit more. So that's what keeps me at bay, is being able to have like the data and stuff that drives my conviction. And it helps me whenever I think about like even like the shorter or midterm stuff. Yeah, we saw some energy for Bitcoin this past week, but it makes me, in the back of my mind, not get too bullish or too excited, because I always remember this weekly chart and how we probably will hang around here. That doesn't mean we don't get to 80. But the thing that would make me flip and say, okay, the weekly chart's kind of starting to not have, as much validation, is whenever this 50-day moving average comes down, we finish a weekly candle above that. So that's my trigger point. Just wanted to put that out there as well. We got a couple more comments in here. Van Wang says, don't buy anything. I mean, I can't argue too much with you on that. DCAing Bitcoin, I still think is okay, but probably going to get it cheaper, right? And so it depends on how greedy you want to be, right? And sometimes it's not greedy. Sometimes it's just being, hey, I'm good. I've been DCAing for quite some time. I'm going to chill because I think it's going to go down a little bit more. And then you do wait, and then you turn that DCA back on. So appreciate that. Is the channel bullish on Tau subnets? Honestly, some like shoots, I am bullish on shoots. And the reason why is because when I set up my Openclaw and I'm selecting my model for my Openclaw configuration, shoots is an option for a model, for that model. So, shoots is a kind of, I would say like a data accumulation, testing grounds, and LLM development company is what my understanding is with it. And the fact that they are on Openclaw, to me, that is showing that they are being taken very seriously, right? Because they're being used. So shoots, yes. And then there's some other ones that, I definitely need to dig a little bit deeper into the Tau subnets. But, just like any space in crypto, you're gonna have some winners that hang around, like the Aves that launched in 2017 in MakerDAOs and Curve Finances and these type of things. And then you're going to have the ones that aren't as strong and fade off, right? Tau probably has a little bit more of an opportunity for some of these subnets because they're kind of tight knit with like Silicon Valley and I think Y Combinator and I think it's Billy Siebert maybe, or I can't remember his name. But he was a part of, I think he was a part of Consensus or some other big company that was before. So there's definitely investment backing there. And the Austin tech area as well, kind of, there's a couple of Tau subnets in that area too. Mr. Sheedy says LFG, and he says, what did I miss? You missed a bunch of negative job report. 92,000 negative jobs were reported for this jobs report today. So not good. And the expected was 50,000. Sheedy. So hope you're doing well. I hope that like the Bitcoin ecosystem starts to really, honestly, like right now in the bear market, you just want to see builders, and I'm seeing that. And so appreciate you, Sheedy, always supporting all you guys, definitely always supporting the channel. But again, put your questions, comments in the chat, and also any tickers you want me to take a look at, all that stuff. Van Wong says, join the army. Join the army. I actually already did. I was in the army when I came out of high school. I don't need to go back. But yeah. All right, let's get into. Oh, Sheedy has another question. He says, what do you think of Magic Eden sunsetting Bitcoin? This is an interesting question. I mean, just thing to think about, especially for someone that's been in the space for quite some time, right? In both of us have. I think Magic Eden had a lot of success in our space, and I don't think this just happened with them, but I think they've been checked out with Bitcoin for quite some time because their business model isn't generating the revenue or anything close to what it was whenever things were good. And I think they invested quite a bit into scaling solutions like prepping for Spark and trying to have this runes swap type situation. And but that does, like, I actually have seen a lot of energy come out from the Bitcoin ecosystem builder community to support other marketplaces. But they also sunsetted EVM in their wallet as well. So it's not just Bitcoin. They're taking this different approach of going all in with the gambling apps. It's like a casino type of application. So I think someone else is going to take advantage and actually benefit quite a bit once ordinal starts to pick up. And remember, the entire space doesn't have, like I mentioned, Tau is $180 to $190. I mean, the entire crypto space is down right now. Retail interest is at an all-time low. You can go and check the YouTube numbers. It's absolutely abysmal right now in this very moment. It's decreased by like 60% from just last month. And so, but like the people that are sticking around that have passion for this space, like you and, Stan and all these community members, myself, all these people, once it's like back, whether it's going to be Bitcoin ecosystem or something else, like we'll be here and ready. And I think that's the biggest advantage that we have, right? All right, let's get into a couple news headlines here and see what is happening around the globe, the cryptoverse. All right, so some adoption happening. Canada, Canada. They are like, I don't know. I feel like they're lost, but so is probably the U.S. right now. But it says Bank of Canada and the country's major banks completed their first tokenized bond trial. Right, so they are following the footsteps of the United States here. And they are tokenizing RWAs, and you don't want to be behind if you're a country with the RWA, tokenizing your bonds and having putting it out there to more accessible markets, right? You have to remember, like the bond market before was really, yes, everyday people could get involved with it, but it wasn't as like easy as being on a blockchain to where I can just have my wallet and buy bonds or whatever, right? So I don't know if that's exactly how things are going to flow, but I imagine that tokenizing these type of RWAs is going to open it up to more liquidity availability for these countries, right? So it makes a lot of sense to do so. So Canada's on board for that. Kazakhstan, which is one of those countries in the Middle East, kind of, I think, close to Russia maybe, but I don't know if you guys know that this happens a lot, but a lot of their electricity is so cheap that there's miner companies that just set up shop there. Chinese Bitcoin mining companies, they'll mine Bitcoin, Doge, Litecoin, all the proof of work stuff. And they set up over there and they just have like managers really manage it because the energy is so cheap. So no shocker that these countries are starting to get involved, but their central bank is planning a $350 million portfolio tied to crypto markets, expected to begin in April and May. So we're starting to see a little bit of this nation state, headline stuff again. And, for a while we were like, is El Salvador still buying Bitcoin? They weren't really in the headlines too much about buying Bitcoin. And then about 3 weeks ago, they started buying again. So this bear market kind of situation, they know that this is an opportunity for when Bitcoin's cheaper to be able to, this is their DCA type moments, right? So we're seeing some of these other countries say, hey, we're going to get ready as well. So Kazakhstan, add them to the list. Shitty says fair assessment. I think better in the long run. I do too. More of a flush out. Magic Eden was definitely here for the money making opportunity. Let's not get it twisted. So was Unisat. All of them were, and they made a lot of money. That is for sure. All right, let's take a look here at Solana spot ETF. Solana spot ETFs have accumulated 1.45 billion inflows despite SOL dropping 57% since the spot ETF's launch, says Bloomberg's Eruc Balchunas. Yeah, I mean, whenever I hear institutions talk about Solana, this is one of the coins that they're bullish on, right? And, from 2025, we know that most of all of the buying was happening by institutions. And so no shocker that, they're still buying while the price is going down. They look at this as an opportunity, as like a blue chip stock that's cheap. I really do believe that about like the institutions buying up Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and then you can go down a little bit more like XRP, BNB. Hyperliquid is a little bit more on the risk curve, but it shows so much potential. But they look at these as like probably their hugest, largest opportunity, and retail just sees it as like, oh, the bear market, everything sucks, crypto is horrible, I hate it all. And I mean, I don't blame retail a lot of times, because I mean, what the crypto industry's kind of done to retail, they have every right to be kind of upset right now. Institutions don't care, because institutions can kind of get, control the market over. And that is exactly what I think they're doing. They're just loading up for when things get stabilized. They probably love this instability, honestly. Retail, we hate it because there's not very much opportunity for short to midterm, right? But for them, they already think long term. Think about how these banks think. Their mentality is to give people that have good credit or decent credit a 30-year mortgage. They're not going to see. They know over time that they're just going to just continually just get richer, right? Over time, at 30 years, that's their mentality. This is their mentality. They don't care that Bitcoin is at 60,000. They hope it goes to 20 or 30, right? Because their mentality isn't like regular, people in society that want to get rich quick, or try to flip something in 4 months, that type of thing. No, their mentality is 30-year mortgage, because they just continually accumulate wealth. All right. So Solana, I'm bullish on Solana. I'm bullish on those tokens that I talked about for longer term, though, for sure. All right. Well, here's some, hopium, if you guys are looking for hopium. Cointelegraph report says Bitcoin non-empty wallets hit record high, while exchange supply drops to its lowest level since December 7, 2017, signaling rising adoption and increased offline storage per Sentiment. They're always reporting good old Sentiment. Yeah, so non-empty wallets, probably some of these wallets got 0.0000001 Bitcoin in them. No, I'm just kidding. But the supply drops on exchanges as well. I mean, cool. This is like, yes, I mean, this is a positive thing, right? But I don't expect any like crazy activity here in, for Bitcoin to just shoot up based off of this information. But it is a good trend that people are also, being more with the self-custody stuff too, right? Sending them to offline storage. And I think that's going to be a just continual adoption type of mentality for the people that are here, not for the people that are like in everyday society. They're going to just be using crypto while they don't even know it eventually type situation, right? But yeah. So this is the chart you can see here. And the exchanges are at its lowest since 2017. So, I mean, could there be a supply and demand situation? Sure, eventually, right? But we will see if that plays out there. All right, a couple more comments here. Thunder hit me in the, I guess that's I don't know, but says Magic Eden's API for Ordinal's Marketplace will stay active. They are just hibernating. I'm sure Magic Eden will bring back Ordinals once their time comes back. With a flip of a switch, they can connect the API back to their website. I feel like you work for Magic Eden. Do you work for Magic Eden? Because no, I mean, I know it's public knowledge about the API thing, but do you think that they're considering that? And also, I guess if the Ordinals Marketplace were to get like bullish out of nowhere, I mean, yeah, why wouldn't they, like extra bullish, right? Why wouldn't they just start participating again? I guess that's something that, might happen. Sheedy, I'm curious, how would you feel about that? Would you use Magic Eden if that happened? Let's say that like something like, I don't know, Unisat or Ordinal's Wallet or Ordinal Hive. We've been talking about them on the show quite a bit because Fonzie is the founder there. I've known him for a while, but like, what if one of them take over the reins and things get bullish and then Magic Eden flips the switch back on because they want to make more money? I don't know. All right. Let's get back. Keep those comments and questions coming, though. Love the questions for sure and comments. All right. Let's get into Bitcoin and what it might want to do for today, the rest of today, which is Friday. Fridays are tricky, right? Because they're not really extra bullish in my opinion typically, and if they start off bullish, a lot of times it'll just taper off because it's heading into the weekend, volume thins out a bit and all that stuff. But let's see what's going to happen here. Share my screen. I got Bitcoin starting on the hour chart, looking at the MACD, which has been drawn out quite a bit here since Wednesday. We've been in sell pressure session, right? So 5 p.m. Central Wednesday. So that's heading on almost at 5 p.m. It'll be 48 hours, right? So, it looks like it extended quite a bit, but now it's starting to break down a little bit, but it's tried to break down twice, once on Thursday and then once on Thursday morning, very early, like 3 a.m. And then the second time Thursday evening. And so this is the first time since we've been in Friday that's really tried to break down, and we'll see if that happens. Stochastic looks like it's wanting the curve back up, but we need to see this fast line here on the MACD actually show some curvature here, right? Because we start to see some curvature, then we'll start to see a little bit more of pushing to the upside. We do need to see the stochastics also, the fast line, get past this 20-point mark, maybe get to that 30-point mark, head to the 50, and then feel a little bit more comfortable. But that's kind of what happened actually on at 3 a.m, because there was a little bit of breakdown here, but it got to like 67 and then completely about faced. So maybe that's not going to be a lock in if it gets there, but we do need it to head towards that direction, right? So as of right now, I mean, it's not showing any aggressive push to the upside. It is showing a little bit of breakdown here. So I wouldn't expect shooting back to 70,000 or anything like that necessarily. Could it happen? Yeah. I mean, Bitcoin's been extremely volatile lately. Maybe the unemployment numbers though are just too bad for these market participants to push Bitcoin up right now, sitting at 68,650. So probably sideways. Maybe we come out of this, but if we do, I don't think it's going to be anything super exciting. Maybe we try to challenge 70,000 over the weekend. Sunday is going to be very big because it's going to let us know if we have our 7th week of negative weekly returns for Bitcoin in a row. Hopefully we don't get that, but if we do, we do. Again, we're closer to the end of that than we are at the start, right? So that's what's important. So that's what I'm thinking for Bitcoin today. Probably a boring day for Bitcoin for the most part, honestly. Sideways with maybe a little bit of uptrend if we come out of this, or if we stay in it, maybe we're just bouncing around 68.5 to like 69.5, something like that. So that's what I'm seeing for Bitcoin here. Let's actually look at some liquidation levels too before I get into the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin, just to kind of give us maybe a little bit more of some clear navigation. All right, so it looks like liquidation levels below are pretty clear. I mean, we do have like 10 million at 68,000. That goes all the way kind of down to about 67, low 67. Above, we have some concentrated liquidity that's forming in these areas here, starting at 70,900-ish, just like 72,000, right? So I don't think it's enough to like try to shoot up there and grab it right now. They probably honestly want it to build up. That's the strategy of these market makers and companies, right? They want the liquidity to continually heat up, build up there, and then they go for the jugular, right? So so thesis stays the same here. Sorry, I didn't mean to pull that out because I want to go back to the Bitcoin 4-hour chart. Let's take a look at the 4-hour chart here. The 4-hour. So the 4-hour is showing sell pressure still looking strong here, guys, right? So kind of what I was saying, doesn't look really froggy like it wants to jump up. The 4-hour breaks down a little bit, then we'll start to talk a little bit more. So it's going to be a boring Friday with sideways a little bit, potentially a little bit downtrend. So be ready for that. That's probably why the retail is not excited at all about what's happening, right? Is because Bitcoin is just volatile, up, down, left, right, A, B, start. You guys remember that? The older people probably do. It's the Nintendo codes. All right. Looking at the daily here, Bitcoin is breaking down out of the daily. Okay, so giving us a little bit more confirmation of what we've been talking about. It's been up here in the daily for some time. We might actually have our 7th week in a row of red returns this Sunday. I mean, look at this. This doesn't look positive much at all. So yeah, I mean, breaking down on the daily chart, been in overbought territory since the middle of February. So was this situation where Bitcoin got to 74,000, was that our spring energy pump? If it was, that sucks. That I'm not ready to commit to that. Maybe the next week or two we do pull back and stuff, but I do think maybe one more thrust to the upside before the end of April, something like that. I could see that for sure. But the daily is not looking great for Bitcoin. Looks like it wants to continue down. So it's giving me more confidence about saying sideways with a little bit of downtrend heading into Sunday, at least. All right, Ethereum. Let's take a quick look-see here on ETH on the hour chart. Continuation to the downside. We're sitting at 1975. So looks like we're going to probably go lower there. The 4-hour chart, same thing as Bitcoin. And this is kind of what I was talking about, the main topic of the show, don't touch alts, because this is why. It follows Bitcoin to a T until it starts to detach there. We got to look at Bitcoin first, right? And the daily chart as well. Ethereum's ready to come out as well. Hasn't been in the overbought as aggressively, I would say, as Bitcoin, but it has been kind of in the same time frame range. All right, so that's Bitcoin, Ethereum, sideways, maybe a little bit downtrend for the rest of today, heading into a probably boring Saturday as well. Saturdays are horrible in terms of action. All right, let's take a look here at the crypto bubbles, the alt markets. And the top 100, the winner of the top 100 is River, up 11.9%. You got Pi coin up 3.4%. I don't know how this coin is in the top 100, and it remains here too. It's at $1.91 billion market cap, man. It's crazy. And what else is green? That's sticking out. Layer Zero, a little green here, 1.2%. We were talking in the Buzz Bitcoin Spaces yesterday. We talk about all the markets, but co-hosted by me and Ordinal Hive about Layer Zero Alpha Gamer, which is a really good trader and insight in there. You guys should definitely join Thursdays at 1 p.m. Central. We're talking about how Layer Zero only has 300 million of their tokens in circulation, and I think they have a total supply of 1 billion. So something to think about, because they are getting a lot of pub from institutions just being bullish on them. They're working closely with BlackRock as well, but I'm sure that they have some sort of strong plan for distribution. But they're up 1.2% there. HTX is up 1.3%. XAUT up 1.2%. You got Kite up 0.7%. Meme Core up 2.7%. All right, let's talk about the nasties. The big pullback percentage-wise in the top 100, it's about 95% pulled back. And you're looking at anywhere between 4 and 7%, with the biggest loser being Morpho, pulling back 7.1%. I'm stand corrected. The second biggest loser is Morpho. Biggest loser that I'm seeing here is Zcash. Privacy, man. I don't know. I think that meta might be donezo, but we will see. Zcash has pulled back 8.2%. And then you got Pump Coin pulling back 6.2%. What happened to Pump's airdrop? I thought they were supposed to have some big airdrop for their users and all. It's so funny how they just these large platform companies that like made so much money are able to like just sidestep these promises that they came out with. They came out with a set on their X account that they were doing an airdrop for their users. Oh, we got to do better as a space, guys. We got to do better as a space. All right, Pump is down 6.1%. You got WLD pulling back 5.4%. XMR pulling back 4.2%. Tau pulling back 4.5%. So they're below 180. They're at 177.55. Ugh. All right, but I'm bullish on them long term. You got Sky pulling back 6% here. Sky is a lending protocol. I actually did some research on them. Wilfi is pulling back about 3% here. XMR Monero 4%. So privacy wise, you got Zcash down 9%, Monero down 4%. Where's Dash? Dash Coin. They were in the top 100. I guess they're not here. No mo. All right, well, that is the top 100. Let's take a quick look at the top 200 and see if there's anything significant. Yeah, I got some stuff here. It's about the same ratio, though, right? Most everything, 95% is pulled back. Lighter, which is a Perps Dex, is down 14.3%. You got Lombard pulling back 13.4%. I think they were green Lombard the past couple of days, so no shocker that it is pulling back. Cheer. You got Plasma XPL pulling back 13.1%. They are backed by Tether. This is a pretty big pullback, though. I wonder if they were in the news for something. Hex has pulled back 10%. PulseX pulling back 9.7%. So all of these tokens that are correlated, right, are pulled back. Richard Hart's group of tokens that he has, right, that he was a part of. You got Aerodrome pulling back about 5%, Dog with Hat. So most everything's pulled back between 4 and 7% here as well. A little bit higher, maybe 8%. Cent got sent today. It's up almost 20%, 19%, I should say. And that's pretty much it in the top 200 here, guys. So yeah, it's not a beautiful day for the crypto markets. Bitcoin and the alt markets look beat to the feet up. All right. Let's get back into a little bit more news here. Jack Mallers. You guys know Jack Mallers, right? He is the guy that was named, I think, CEO of something, that a sector that I think Tether was doing. But he is a big part of Strike, right? So it says Strike scores Bit license to offer New Yorkers Bitcoin services. So this is good adoption. I think he's the right person to kind of put into the limelight as well for something like this. He's younger. His energy is pretty good. So I think it's pretty good for him to kind of be in the spot. But it says Bitcoin payments company Strike has secured a Bit license and money transmitter license from the New York State Department of Financial Services, allowing the firm to begin offering its Bitcoin financial services platform to residents and businesses in the state. The approvals authorize Strike, operated by Chicago-based Zap Solutions, to provide services including Bitcoin brokerage, recurring purchases, direct deposit conversion to Bitcoin, and bill payments funded with BTC, according to a March 5th. So this is interesting. This could be really, really good, especially if this becomes a popular theme that goes across the United States, right? I mean, you're talking about, so brokerage accounts, that's something we're already used to. Recurring purchases, okay, yeah, DCA, direct deposit conversion to Bitcoin. That is something I think that is mainstream adoption that could really start to take, effect of Bitcoin's, just the effect of the price and the supply if it catches, right? If it catches, because that could be a lot of purchasing of Bitcoin every pay period, right? And if this is something that goes into becomes popular in high populated states like Florida, Texas, California, those type of things, you never know. And bill payments funded with Bitcoin. So this is definitely sounding pretty bullish for Bitcoin. It says New York's BIT license regimen introduced by NYDFS in 2015 is widely regarded as one of the most stringent regulatory frameworks for cryptocurrency companies in the U.S. Firms seeking to operate in the state must meet extensive requirements around anti-money laundering controls, cybersecurity standards, capital reserves, and ongoing regulatory oversight to win the regulatory nod. Yeah. We'll see if that is how it remains, because as we know with politics, there's a lot of stuff that can swing things in your favor. And then this is a statement from Jack Mallers. It says, receiving our BIT license is a defining milestone for Strike, founder and CEO. Yeah, so he's the founder of Strike. It says, with our BIT license, we can now bring that mission to New York, the global center of finance. Yeah, I mean, that's a great city to start with, right? So that is definitely bullish overall for adoption, and we'll see how much it helps. All right, this next story here is funny because I feel like some OG builders in the space, in the crypto space, are kind of going at it. And it brings the question up, did Pancake Swap steal Curve Finance's code? So there's an actual direct tweet from the Curve Finance account, and it says, Dear Pancake Swap, looks like you copied our code without asking. It is a violation of its license. Not only is it illegal, historically it showed to be unwise for those who did it in this way in other regards. In any case, if you want to enjoy using stable swap without legal problems and to borrow some of our expertise to keep users safe, you can still contact us for licensing and collaboration. And then you can see right here in this, it looks like metadata. But on line 7, it says license to do, which license should we use? And, it's basically showing like that they did take it without permission. But the funny part is the follow-up here. And it says, from Pancake Swap, hey, Curve Finance, we're reaching out to your team directly to discuss this. I mean, does that sound like they got their hand caught in the cookie jar? Because to me, it does. They got caught red-handed. And then you got Coffee Chris, which is a content creator as well. He says, shouldn't this be handled not on X? Yeah, but then we wouldn't be able to talk about it, right? On OnChain Revolution's show. So I think it's funny, too. I'm sure they're going to work it out. There's tons of money from the Pancake Swap side, I'm sure, as they are probably, heavily backed by Binance and that whole CZ type situation. All right, this next thing here, and then we're going to get into some Bitcoin ecosystem updates from good old Barbra's catch up, which I'm grateful that she writes those because they're amazing. This is something to keep your eye on. ETF inflows or ETF flows, BTC, ETH, SOL, and XRP spot ETF SOL net outflows on March 5th, which was yesterday, right? So does it start a trend? We saw the trend that lasted literally for only a week, it seemed like, go to net positive inflows. But you see Bitcoin negative 227.83 million, Ethereum negative 90.9 million, Solana negative 5.23 million, and then XRP negative 6.15 million. That is across the board. That is a four of a kind right there, my friends. And we had about 2 or 3 of those that were net inflows this past week and a half. Now we're starting the opposite direction. So I think it's going to be really important to see how today's net, flow situation ends for Friday, March 6th for the ETFs. And then Monday, it's going to be really important, right? Because is this going to be a trend that flows the other direction? Because it was a precursor to the pump that we got, right? So, you got to use the data that you're given, and that is, what we've been given, right? So something to keep your eye on. I'm definitely going to be tracking it for you guys too. We can just talk about it throughout next week as well. All right, let me make sure I get everything before we jump into that Bitcoin ecosystem part here. Well, this is some good news really quick. It has to do with the Clarity Act. It's not so fun to talk about necessarily, but at least it's an update, kind of, right? So this was posted last night and says crypto market structure talks are moving in the right direction. Senator Tilis emerging as a key vote for the Clarity Act's passage. Industry sources remain cautiously optimistic about a late March banking committee markup. So at least we are moving in the right direction, right? That is, I guess the point of this post. Some people were asking for a Clarity update, and I mean, we've heard stuff like this before as well, right? So don't probably get too confident that we're going to get something done, but at least they're pushing it in the headlines that they're going to be doing it. And this is the last thing we're going to talk about before we talk about the Bitcoin ecosystem stuff. But Pudgy Penguins is hit with a trademark infringement lawsuit by Penguin Apparel. This actually made me laugh. Brand PEI Licensing after ignoring a 2023 cease and desist. Where is the infringement with this? Sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't showing you guys, but where is the infringement with this? I mean, this is like completely is this a reach or what? So you can't make a penguin character at all, even if it looks completely different than the brand logo, because the clothing brand penguin logo looks, these don't look anything similar at all. So there must have been some sort of situation where the penguin brand, the clothing brand, had Pudgy something in one of their products or something, because if it's based off of this art, there's no way they can win that. I don't think, at least. I'm curious what you guys think, but I thought that was funny though. It reminded me of these sketch drawings, kind of the kids that say of their dads and stuff. I saw that on a news report thing, and it was such a bad drawing, but this is such a bad comparison to these two saying they copied them. It had to have been something in the product, but anyways, they're dealing with that, right? So Luca Nets and his team is dealing with this lawsuit, but there's some comments that are funny in here. Luca will need to sell Pudgy. No, he's not going to do that, I don't think. But I got to get some more information, because there's no way that's, like that. But I definitely thought it was funny, for sure. That was pretty funny. All right, let's get into some Bitcoin ecosystem stuff here. And we're going to get into the catch up here by Barbra. So you guys need to follow Barbra if you are interested in Bitcoin ecosystem news and updates. She's on X, and it's at that WAGMI, WAGMI girl. Okay. Amazing updates that she does, for sure. And does them quite often too. You can see here, And this was yesterday morning, right? So let's kind of get into a little bit of the beginning part right here, because this is something that's been talked about in the Bitcoin ordinals and ecosystem space a bit. Casey Rodarmor's been coming out. He's the creator of Bitcoin ordinals, and he submitted a ordinals BIP, right, proposal to Bitcoin Core 2 years ago, right? So after the proposal of 110 that was actually went through, I believe it did, to start to filter spam is what they called it. Kenzuri, which is someone that I guess has authority to be able to open and close these BIPs as well, went in, he came out and says he has closed ordinals BIP pull request, which was opened by Casey over 2 years ago, saying, it was time to close it because the PRQ needed to be cleaned out. So it is a little weird that he waited 2 years to do that. But now with, 110 going through and all that stuff, there's definitely like this politics struggle that's happening within Bitcoin Core right now. But as Casey said, ordinals aren't going anywhere. They're moving aggressively to ensure that the ordinal ecosystem and structure and everything is airtight, right? Magic Eden moving away, there had to be, there's this thing called galleries that people needed to start to, put together to make sure that like you're not gonna be messed up from Magic Eden's centralized kind of indexing that they were a part of, right? So that is another example of it, right? All right, and it actually talks about here. It says if you have an ordinals listed on Magic Eden, you have until March 9th to delist or move it to another marketplace before the platform sunsets. So that's something that you guys need to do. If you guys are in the Bitcoin ecosystem, make sure you take care of that. And so, awesome. All right, let's see what else is happening. So this is kind of quick hits here. It's called the coffee, right? Lombard Finance, so that's the BARD token in the crypto bubbles that I talk about, says introduces Bitcoin yield for a Bitcoin on Bitcoin returns between 3 and 5%. So there's multiple different companies doing that. I know Merlin Chain also has their product as well, the stake Bitcoin. Unisat is set to complete a system-wide upgrade aligned with the latest ordinals version. So upgrading the Unisat wallet as well. And that could be a little bit of some forecasting that, BRC20 stuff is going to be, I don't know, man. I feel like BRC20 and Ordi and stuff like that is starting to heat up. I do have a comment over on Abstract from Orzi. He says, why is this crypto market so disgusting? Yeah, it is disgusting, man. And it's disgusting because we got to get through the instability. We got to get back to being stable as from a geopolitical. I hate to say it because it's like, do we have 2 more years of this, right? But we need stability. We need stability. But I would say the sectors and the communities and areas in Web3 right now that are still staying active, even if it's not huge active, but it's active spaces, community building, builders still building. Those are the ones you got to pay attention to, because right now is the easiest time for builders to pivot to AI or to and community members to lose focus and say, man, this market is dead. It's not gonna. But the ones that are there in those areas, those are the ones that are continually trying to have everything ready for whenever the liquidity comes back, in a more sustained way. And I think Abstract is one of those areas for sure. They have good leadership with Luca Netz and his team. I think the Bitcoin ecosystem for sure is one of those places. Ethereum has some stuff, Base a little bit. Solana, of course, does, but Solana is more of just this. I feel like Solana reminds me of like, and I don't know, this might be a bad analogy, but Solana is like the quarterback douchebag guy, right, of your high school team, like to where he's pretty good, at quarterback, but like he's an a-hole and people don't like him that much unless you're on the football team or something, right? Because Solana is like gets a lot of attention, but like the opportunity isn't, it's a facade, right? Like you're not this great guy and all this stuff. Like there's a group of people that are winning on Solana, and it's not everyday retail people, believe me. But because they are popular and institutions think of them, they'll have their spot. But the niche communities like collectibles and stuff like that, I'm really bullish for long term on. The Ackman says, I think BRC20s are going to be big for RWAs. Hey, they could be. They could be. I know that there's people building right now for BRC20s. Ordi is one of the biggest like overlooked assets right now in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Look, I really do like Leonidas a lot. I think he's a cool person. We've had him on the show multiple times, and I think runes will have their place in whatever. But I think from an overall like single asset that has a lot of upside potential, Ordi is like one of those that does, because really supported by the East, listed on Binance, whether you hate Binance or you don't. I mean, Binance is Binance still, right? And it hasn't made its really like takeover moment yet. So we'll see. But appreciate the comment there, the Ackman, for sure. All right, let's get back to this Bitcoin update though. All right, so Unisat wallet, right? So they're having an upgrade. So just know that if you're doing anything with your Unisat wallet, that they have that scheduled update. Liquidium promises to support if anyone builds an open source marketplace for ordinals. So getting support from other builders, that's big. Liquidium steps up for that. Runes limit orders are now live on DotSwap. DotSwap is also another area that in the Bitcoin ecosystem, has a lot of like liquidity that's aggregated there, or not aggregated, sorry. That they're building up there for different fungible tokens, runes, and they're open to other standards as well. So really big. I'm going to try to see if there's anything big. So yesterday talked about Beyond Tech and the Echo Ports Ordinals collection. So their launch is coming on the 12th of March, 5,555 supply. So you can check that out if you go to @beyond_tech. Do your own research on all of those, and then Ord Torches to mint on the 19th with 3,333 supply. So the 19th, about 2 weeks from now. Bitcoin Punks went ahead and inscribed a 10,000 gallery. So they're moving forward with that. Knox, which is in the Bitcoin ecosystem, he does the SkullX collection. It looks like he inscribes a gallery for his collection, and Billy Resty, which is a big artist in the ordinals area, makes a guide on inscribing collection. So if you go to @BillyResty, and it's RESTEY on X, you can get the guide of how to inscribe galleries for your collections there. Last two things here: Lunatex BTC launched Parasite free mint to celebrate OMB's mining a block. So that was one thing that was earlier in this. You can see Parasite. So Parasite is a project that was started by Ordinal Maxi Biz, decentralized mining pool. They got their first block, right? So the hash rate reached 185 pH, meaning it will take about 40 to 50 days before another block is mined. So congratulations to Parasite for getting their first one. I mean, they've been around for a while, right? But pretty cool, that whole project there. But that is pretty much going to wrap it up for the Bitcoin ecosystem, guys. So Citria, I'll say, is another area. It's they utilize the off return for data, but they do roll up stuff for Bitcoin. So I think they're starting some farming stuff as well, maybe for like points and stuff like that. So you can check them out as well. But that is going to wrap up the Bitcoin ecosystem update. And let me do one last double check and make sure I did not skip over anything that was important. Yeah, I think we're good on all of that stuff. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me for the entire week when crypto, like Or says, why is the market so disgusting? It's disgusting. People think it's boring. But the ones that pay attention and continually try to learn more and get connected with community. Like, you saw in the comments, people like, Mr. Sheedy and Stan and Van Wong, like they're getting connected. Acme, right? That's what keeps you active, even in like the markets when the markets are bad, right? And also, it's okay for people to kind of step away for a bit. So I think this is probably good for a lot of people. Step away, clear your mind, go do some things, but that doesn't mean stay away unless you're completely done with it. If you're completely done with it, that's your prerogative. But if you just need to clear your mind to do something that, in your life that, go to a movie, go play golf, go do something else to kind of get your mind away from it, that is actually what you should be doing. That's healthy. So, but you always want to make sure that you're staying on top of things in terms of learning and being up to date on things. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, like I said, all week. Appreciate the support. Without you guys, could not do this show. And until Monday, peace.